yesterday, December 7, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
The show is in honor of. It's a program brought to you to help veterans and to help their families and for the general public to be aware of what a veteran does. A couple of months ago, we had a special guest, Art Cody and the New York Defender program, join us and give us an update on the program and what it is. And Art has brought with him Peter Ivan, and Peter is going to assist Art in talking to us about the program, and very, very interesting once we start. And of course, my co-host, Paul Dietrich. Paul makes things happen here, and he's even brought pizza today. God bless him. Art, tell us a little bit about the program.
Sure, and again, thanks for having me on again since the first time last month. And just to recap what the program is all about, it's the Veterans Defense Program, and it's part of the New York State Defenders Association. And what the Veterans Defense Program does, more than anything else, is to assist veterans in criminal court and in family court. And really, our job is to explain and help a prosecutor, help a judge understand what veterans go through. As I think, as we know on this set, only about 7% of the U.S. population are veterans, and the culture, the military culture, and what our veterans go through is so dramatically different than what we see here in Staten Island. So a big part of sometimes why our vets do get into some issues with the criminal justice system has a lot to do with what happened to them overseas. So again, we try to translate all those experiences and all the acronyms, all the military acronyms, so a judge and a prosecutor, and everyone really in the legal community can understand what these veterans have gone through, with the idea that what we really want for our veterans is not so much incarceration, not so much a prison term. That's not really going to help anybody, but really just to help them fully integrate what we think of as come all the way home and return to their place in the society that they help to defend.
It's very, very interesting. Peter, first of all, I want to thank you for being here. You're taking time out of your schedule, both of you, to be here on this program, and it only enlightens veterans and their families as to what's available for them out there. Peter, you served in Afghanistan?
Yes, sir. Afghanistan, 2012, as a combat medic. I was in Kandahar and Bagram, and in a little offshoot area, Sabala Harrison, where I spent some time in a prison with detainees. So about 2 months there, and the rest in Kandahar.
And you got to see your action in Kandahar.
Yeah, there was a lot of bad stuff going on, but as a medic, pretty much all we seen was that part. Our role was my company conducted operations in a clinic, and about 150 feet from there was the Role 3 hospital, where all the casualties from southern Afghanistan come in. So basically, guys out in the field getting hurt, coming back hurt, and we would take treatment from there. So we've seen a lot of nasty stuff there, but none of it was a cakewalk.
I would imagine not. I mean, just being there is not a cakewalk.
No, exactly. As
Paul Dietrich has testified to so many times as to...
The entire experience is just a giant stress upon you. You're constantly almost hyper alert. I don't know how else to describe it. Yeah. You never know when you might be rocketed, mortared, shot at, IED'd. I remember talking beforehand about my own experiences on coming home from on leave, and you just don't relax. I remember driving down I-95 and feeling naked because there were no concrete walls to protect you from shrapnel on the sides of the highway. I can remember constantly, where's my pistol? Yeah. It becomes such a part of you that you just feel naked without it, and it does not go away.
No,
I mean, you learn to live with it, but the stresses that are upon you, and then, hey, we've all seen people that we know killed. Many of us have. You as a medic handled people that were in serious conditions. That all is a very real stress upon you, and it affects the way you react when you come back. And to be perfectly honest, I found that there was very little real transition from the military back into civilian. My experience was, okay, we want to get you out of the mobilization side. I was a reservist. They wanted to get me back into the civilian world, so it was okay. Check all these boxes and take your bag and go home.
That's exactly what it is. And then you're pretty much on your own.
Yes.
And the only way you know how to handle things is the Army way, which is always kinetic. Yes. And is always very, the only thing that's going to stop me is death, and that your reality becomes a little skewed, yes, but it is your reality, and you live in that, and you act like that, and the world does not respond well.
No.
And sometimes we get in trouble.
Which is why you find a lot of the guys coming out of the military going to law enforcement across the country.
Yes, they do.
Because it's just a continuation of where they left off. Now, you were also a combat veteran in the military.
I don't think my experiences are as intense as, say, Paul's or Peter's, but yeah, I served in Afghanistan.
Right, okay. Right. How did you and Pete come to meet?
Sure. Well, part of our mission, as I mentioned, is to help veterans who are involved in the criminal justice system. And one of the things that we try to impart to district attorneys and judges is that the vast majority of soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marine, etc., that are coming into the military have absolutely no clean record. I'm sorry, have absolutely no criminal record.
Right.
So we take these good young American citizens, but what they're exposed to, what we've just talked about, sometimes when they come home, as in many cases when they come home, they are going to have difficulties reintegrating because of what they've gone through and what they've seen overseas. So in Peter's case, and I want to say this was in 2015?
What?
When you and I started to work together.
Maybe 14. Because 13 I got involved with the system.
Right.
So around then,
so 2014.
13, 14.
So in Peter's case, and I think Peter's is a good illustration of this, Peter is an absolutely clean record prior to entering into the Army National Guard. Raises his hand like many good young American women and men. But Mike Rice and Peter will elaborate on this. But what he's exposed to, what he needs to do in Afghanistan, and what he saw in Afghanistan is not something that is easy to take with you. So Peter came back from Afghanistan, and I think, perhaps we talked about it earlier on, gets involved in the criminal justice system. At the time, I think, as is the case with many lawyers, lawyers not in the Veterans Defense Program, his lawyer did not have the experience to understand how Peter's Afghan experience was playing out in the charge, the crimes that Peter was charged with. So fortunately, I think,
Yes.
fortunately that lawyer reached out to us and said, "Can you help with this case?" And at that point, that's when I got involved with Peter, sat down with Peter, and really had the opportunity, really the blessing to get to know Peter and to understand what his background was and how it played a direct role in the offenses with which he was charged.
Peter, how was your take on the program when you got involved with it?
My take on the program, it was great, honestly. Even if it wouldn't have had any success, the fact that finally another person understood what I went through and even tried to stand up for me on my behalf was monumental. I mean, I felt more alone than alone. Like, if alone was locked up in a room and thrown at the bottom of the ocean, I would be in a hole deeper than that. I felt like that. So I didn't have any hopes. I mean, I had hopes, but hoping for the best or getting ready for the worst, you know? But eventually it worked out because, one, he was able to portray me as a human being rather than just case number or person number this. And another thing is, a judge finally picked up the brief that Art wrote and read it. And he was like, "This really happened to somebody, I need to read this over again," and spoke to the DAs, and they were like, "Hey, were you guys aware of this?" And whether or not they were, being involved in the justice system here with a 90% conviction rate, you're very likely to end up on the wrong side of the wall, so to speak, right? So I don't know if they read it or not, but after going through all the DAs, finally the judge made him actually read it, and then within 2 days later, after everybody was on the same page, they were like, "Yeah, we really probably shouldn't throw this guy away, and we should give him a second chance." So my second chance ended up being, you know, I'm sure they weren't expecting me to actually, you know, or be like everybody else, just let him go, he'll end up doing something bad and end up here anyways. But I worked it out. I think I've done a lot better than what could have been. I could have been in jail right now. Never, you know, wouldn't have met my son, wouldn't have done a couple of things. And that's just 1 year. And my sentence was this was supposed to be, you know, one of many years I was going to be there. So just what 1 year could do to a person in a rehab state is, I guess, amazing now that I even think about it, versus the alternative, which is jail, and how many people really actually come out of there. It's like war. Nobody really comes home, you know? Like, nobody goes to jail and really comes home rehabbed. So.
And I think in your situation, there was an awful lot to work with. I think the experiences that you had in Bagram and the experiences that you had in Kandahar were such that, and I think we talked about this last show, that if a prosecutor understands and has it explained to them what someone like Peter went through, in my heart, I believe that prosecutors, generally speaking, do want to do the right thing, but it's doing the right thing with full information. So I think one of the things we were able to do is to take Peter's very rich story and make sure a prosecutor understood that. And I think once they did, I think that accounts for the transformation you were talking about. And if my recollection is correct, literally on a Tuesday, it's 5 years.
Yes.
On a Friday, it's probation.
Yes.
And I think a lot of that is, you know, certainly, you know, did we help? Yeah, I think so. But it was more the story you had and the person you were, and that's what they need to get. And that's a lot of what we do, is to help the veteran. I mean, at core, our mission is to tell the veteran story.
Right, but they had that story for a while before they actually picked up and read it. So, you know, and I can't say, if it wasn't for you and Jan pushing, they would have just threw that at the bottom of the pile and kept on going. So.
But besides the probation, was there also additional help for you available once they knew about it?
Once they knew about it, all right, so help. There was help. The VA actually, the VA was good. I've done a program through them, a PTSD program. It was a group therapy, and that helped me out a lot, to tell you the truth. But they put me in touch with New York University, where they also have a program for military vets who have, whatever issues, in my case PTSD, so they deal with that. And that clinic was a lot better than what you're supposed to be getting help from, which is the VA. And so while the VA was like a door opener and it's there, maybe they could have done a little better, but the group I had with them was amazing, and
Just
it helped.
for reference purposes, and maybe this will help the veterans out in the audience, I think that the clinic you're talking about at NYU is it's the Stephen Cohen Clinic.
Military clinic, yes. Stephen Cohen Military Clinic.
And it's part of Langone.
Yes.
The Langone Military Center, Langone Medical Center.
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah.
But would you have gone for that help if you had not gotten involved with the entire criminal justice system? Do you think you would have? Because I know a lot of veterans that really could benefit from any kind of assistance, whether the VA or the other clinic that you went to, and think they should just tough it out. Toughing it out is, in my mind, not what you need to do. You need to get the assistance that you really need.
Right, and that's the problem, because when you're in the military, it's man up, drink water, beat the heat, and that's the military culture. You're not taught to give up. Literally, death will stop you. That's it.
Yes.
Other than that, you keep going, drink water, take an ibuprofen, right?
So when you tough it out, though, you're sinking deeper into the hole.
Yes, in reality, that's what you're doing, but you don't know that as a soldier coming back,
Right.
because that's not the military culture. Even in the military culture, when I was telling my commander things, this was a medical platoon, medical company, right? They were like, man, I gotta say, your story is sounds like a movie. It can't be true. Like, even guys in my own company are like, PTSD this, and they're all medics, so they should understand better. But it's a military culture thing, A vet, you understand his sacrifice when he comes home without an arm. And then you see another vet and he's missing 2 arms, and you're like, wow, his sacrifice is bigger. And then you meet a vet who's missing an arm and a leg, or 2 legs, and now it's like magic, the realm of, I can't understand. Taboo, put him to the side. That's too much, right? And there's also this thing that those are visible and we understand them. You see a vet without an arm, a leg, or more missing, right? We totally understand that. It's a sacrifice. But what you can't see is, and this is happening to most of the young men, is the mental problem, the mental part that you give up. And that's, I guess, the PTSD part, and that's taken, 22 a day, right? So that part, it's, look at me, I'm physically perfect, right? Well, almost. So you can't tell from looking at me that I have anything wrong with me, right? But in my brain, I guess, I feel like
Still
I sacrificed.
backing down to her.
Yeah, right now I'm looking at a picture of it, There's always like a bifocal, like a reflection in my glasses that is always playing that movie of my deployment. And certain images, certain parts come up, whatever is mumbo jumboed, but it never goes away, right? But you can't see it from the outside, so to most people, my sacrifice wasn't great. It's like, PTSD, get over it. You're not shell-shocked like we've seen in the world. A lot of people, when I came back, were like, yeah, we heard of PTSD, yeah, we heard of that, but you're crazy. And I'm like, okay, and literally because what the world portrays, a shell-shocked man or something like that, it's always a physical appearance you can pick up on, but PTSD is not. It's all in your mind, right? So, I don't know.
Well,
that was my sacrifice.
The public is taught by the Hollywood types.
Yes.
With these movies that they put out and these fantastic things. The reality of what it is not shown in the movies from Hollywood.
Exactly.
The reality plays out in everyday life for every veteran that ever was in a situation where he has something embedded into his mind and that just doesn't go away.
Yeah, most people experience something drastic in their life, like the loss of a parent, loss of somebody loved, right?
Yeah.
And you never forget it, right? Imagine seeing that a couple of 100 times, 1,000 times, like some people do, right? And if you can't get away from one, how you think a couple of them are going to affect you, And it's hard, and people just don't understand. People can't relate. There's nothing you can do.
In the Veterans Defense Program, and something I would offer vets who are out there watching and listening, I think really a major part of what we were able to do for you is in PTSD, the middle letter, or one of the middle letters, is the T is for trauma.
Yes.
And I think sometimes what happens is we get this idea that PTSD is trotted out a lot, but what really happened. But I think if you have the ability to go in and say, okay, when we talk about trauma and PTSD, this is what we're talking about. Okay, and you talk about the experiences such as what you had, what you went through, then it becomes much more real to a prosecutor, to a judge, to a jury. When we say trauma, this is what we're talking about. We're not talking about stubbing your toe. Okay, it's much, much, much more significant than that. And I think once we're able to convey what that trauma is, it's a little more understandable why the person is suffering with PTSD.
Yeah, the whole point that I was making about the having gotten some assistance was that in a strange way, maybe it's good because it forced you to get the counseling, the help, and maybe there could have been a better way to come about it, but to me, this is not a free pass. You didn't get a free pass. You had to go and get some help. And I think that's important because, again, the culture in the military is, no, I don't need help. I will just push through. Yeah. That's what we will do. It's another 12-month tour. Okay, I will just push through this one and get home.
That's exactly how it was. I came home to another deployment. That's what I told in my head, and exactly like that.
I think in the last show we used the expression, I think extremely common in the military, suck it up.
Yes.
Because that's what we do, suck it up. And and I think we mentioned last show, there's no military unit that has as a motto, practice self-introspection every day. That's not what they do. They're all about others. And one thing I think we just need to clarify a little bit, in Peter's case, I think one of the great things you did, and was very helpful from a legal perspective, mitigation perspective, was that actually you were in treatment prior to the wreck. So one of the things we were able to do for Peter was to show just how much treatment, how hard he was working to get back to where he was. And I thought that was very powerful that we were able to do that, because that showed the DA, that showed the judge that, hey, here's a guy, okay, he's gotten into a little bit of trouble, okay, but he's really working hard to get back, okay, and you can either let him continue to get better, okay, it's a hard road, but he can continue to do it, or you can send him to prison where that's going to stop. And I think
nothing is going to help them then.
And being able to explain that, really, I think that was a major. Your hard work was really a major factor in changing the course. What we call changing the narrative of how your case went.
Yeah. Well, I call that. When I came back, I felt like I was under the devil's wing, but that was just God's miracle, right? Yeah. Because I did. No matter what, I declared I was in another deployment, and I declared war on getting my life back. So, by any means necessary, and that meant whether it ends or I get help. And I tried all various things, but when I came home, the reason I was in there was because I was trying various things to get myself to some sort of ending, right? And luckily I had, checked in, and I was like, I guess I need some help. But most guys won't do that, and
a lot of them will not.
Well, it showed tremendous courage on your part.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know, but whatever it was my cards were dealt like that. Others won't be, and that's a really big problem.
Thank God.
Yeah.
I think the other important thing is I've met a lot of veterans, all different ages, and I can tell you that I know World War II veterans who in the past few years have gotten into PTSD counseling. And 60 years. And you could see a change, positive change. So for 60 years, they've been sucking it up. I know a Korean War veteran, same exact thing. Hey, 1953. He's been suffering from PTSD for all of those years. He also can't hear because he was in artillery, so he's deafer than me. But the fact of the matter is, these are the types of injuries that you can expect when you send troops into harm's way. You're going to have physical and you're going to have mental. The world they come back to is different than the world they've been in. And that's the truth. And the other world out there really isn't a very pleasant place.
No.
I mean,
No, it's not.
it is not a vacation land, okay? There was a nice swimming pool in the palace that I was in, but nobody went swimming there because the pool boy needed to take the shrapnel out of the pool every day. That's the kind of world that I was in for 2 years, and that you were in for a year.
Yeah, it's not
And
pretty well.
it is different than back here. And the way that you have to function there is different than the way you have to function here.
Right.
Art, did you have any difficulty in presenting your case to prosecutors? Not necessarily in Peter's case, but in the overall.
Generally speaking, I think my experience is that prosecutors are generally interested in your client's military background, but you have to take it out of the generic.
Yes.
You have to take it out of, well, he's a vet, but you have to get into the things that Peter went through.
Yes.
Almost on a very nitty-gritty, down to what I sometimes think in my own mind is the blood and guts, the sound. At core, I want that prosecutor, I want that judge to hear the artillery rounds. I want them to see the same things that Peter went through. And one of the things I think is that we need to emphasize when we're doing that is just how good an investment you're making, because they're making an exception.
Yes.
Instead of insisting on a mandatory prison sentence, they're diverting from that,
Yes.
and they're giving this veteran a second chance. And I think it's important, and I think particularly in your case, Peter, to talk about how, and I do get choked up thinking about it, to talk about how when given the second chance, how that worked out, and literally in my mind, how well you're doing now. Because I can tell you, seeing how well you're doing now, for me, it truly is inspirational, and it helps. I never question whether or not the work of the Veterans Defense Program, just how important it is, because based on how well you've done.
Thank you, Art. And I got to tell you that I think, especially for veterans who have this core beliefs that are a little above standard, right? The Army values and all that. If you give a person like that a second chance, it's not almost a guarantee, but it's a guarantee that that person will use it.
They're going to do their damnedest.
Exactly. They've been through worse, so this is going to be done. But unfortunately, many are not. How many guys do you have on your team that do this, what you do?
And you mean the same?
How many Art Codys are there in New York?
Well, I wouldn't call them an Art Cody, but I don't know if I would slander somebody with that. But essentially, it's myself and one lawyer out in Batavia, Gary Horton, my director.
For all of New York State.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's the problem. How are two people going to sift out all of New York State? It's crazy.
It actually goes even beyond that, because realistically, there are about 30 veterans courts in the counties in the entire state. So you don't even have the thought process in the rest of the counties in the state of New York,
right,
that you should be thinking of veteran, that you should even ask whether somebody is a veteran. Okay?
Yeah, well,
or as I've said to the people here on Staten Island, don't ask them if they're a veteran, ask them if they've served.
If you've got somebody in your family that's a veteran, if you're a veteran yourself, and you need help and there's a problem, reach out and get help. Do it. I think what you're doing is wonderful.
Thank you.
I want to thank Art Cody for being here. Art, thank you.
Thank you.
Peter Ivan, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me.
As always, Paul Dietrich, thanks for being here.
Thank
you.
you.
Keep watching in honor of. We'll keep bringing you programs. And thank you very much. We love you for watching.